Sound check, 1, 2, 3. Sound check, 1, 2, 3. Sound check, 1, 2, 3.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the LRT Subcommittee meeting for this October 16, 2025. We do have quorum present for today's meeting, so I'd like to call the meeting to order. In chambers, we have Councillor Maureen Wilson, Councillor Cameron Kretsch, Councillor Tammy Huang, Councillor Craig Kassar. We have non-voting member Drino Mazik, as well as Brenda Wilson. Online, we have non-voting members Carl Andrus, as well as Emily Walsh. Did I miss any of our non-voting or virtual attendees from the committee? No, seeing none. Okay, we'll go on with the agenda. So a reminder before we do that all your electronic devices should be switched to a non-audible function during committee meetings. And at that, I will need a mover and seconder to approve the agenda as presented, as there's no amendments to it. Thank you, Councillor Kassar. Thank you, Councillor Huang. It is a show of hands vote. All in favor of the agenda? Any opposed? Seeing none, it's carried. Over to declarations of interest. Any? Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of our minutes of our previous meeting, which was held on June 26th. Mover in Councillor Kretsch, seconded in Councillor Maureen Wilson to adopt the previous minutes. Any discussion on the minutes? Show of hand vote. Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Our first item on the agenda is delegations after the approval of the minutes. And before we begin our delegations for today, members are reminded that questions are for delegation of our delegates are for clarification purposes only, not for debate. Note to our delegates who are joining us, many of whom have done this before, but just in case, the 4-minute mark, you're going to hear a ding. That's a warning that you've got a minute left and to wrap up your comments. So first up, we have Chris Ritzma in person. Good afternoon, and when you're ready, you've got 5 minutes. Off you go.
Perfect. Thank you for having me. I'll start with saying that I appreciate the presentation and report, Appendix A, by staff, providing some commentary on the conceptual designs. I'll also start with saying that ultimately the LRT is a transit project first. There's other circumstances, I think, where things like cycling and pedestrians should be the priority. In this case, I think along this corridor, rapid transit should be the priority. That being said, it doesn't mean that pedestrians and cyclists need to be second-class citizens when interacting with this. We've already experienced a situation where we have, King and Main Street cutting off areas of the city, and I don't want the LRT to be doing the same thing, because then we'll get one benefit, but we'll continue to experience that cutoff. So looking at the Appendix A, I just wanted to say that we should be planning on how we expect people to use our infrastructure, not how we want them to use it. I point to the idea of Desire Pass through parks where the grass has been trampled by people taking a shortcut. I'll also repeat what I said last time I was here, which is that pedestrian and cycling connections should not slow down the LRT, as the rapid transit with hundreds of riders should have priority on its corridor over automobiles, cyclists, and pedestrians. Making other modes wait a few seconds means minutes saved for tens of thousands of transit riders. And if the city and Metrolinx are looking to speed vehicles on Main and King, they should consider cutting off many of the side streets to disallow exits off the corridor. Entrances onto the corridor can be maintained in some circumstances, as it's less likely to slow vehicles on Main and King. It seems like there's a couple of design elements where it's kind of pedestrians are impacted negatively to allow right-turning cars, or there's a few suggestions by the city where cars seem to be the priority after the LRT. For the most part, I agree with all of the commentary on the Appendix A. I disagree with a few specific items that I'll highlight. On page 2, right by McMaster and Coots, I don't really understand why there's a suggestion to remove the crosswalks in the east leg of that intersection. They exist in the conceptual design, and I think they should remain. I'll also provide a list to council like I did last time, but just things to kind of keep a note while you're getting the presentation if you view it. I also disagree with some of the designs around Frid Street and the highway interchange on just south of the Dundurn Plaza. There's a suggestion that there should be introduction of a westbound egress from Highway 403 from the northbound eastbound ramp. I don't think that's a good idea. It just adds the ability to go a different way. It doesn't exist now, and it'll increase conflict points and an additional phase that the LRT will have to wait for. Where else? There's a few stations that continue to not have suggestions for an access point at the far end of the station. I don't think that's a good idea because I think people will just cross to get to their train. It may be illegal, it may not be illegal, but regardless, I think it'll be unsafe with vehicles and LRT vehicles. There should be an access at both ends of the LRT stations, especially in circumstances where the crossing distance between two pedestrian accesses across the corridor is quite long, which exists in many instances. The examples of this include the Sherman stop and the Wentworth stop. A few of them, I think, have suggestions that they should essentially add those. And Delta should be looked at as a rework. I wrote down here that it's the first intersection in Canada with a street light, so it should probably be used as an example, like it was 100 years ago or so. And I don't think that in its current design, it's an example for Canada to look at. It's kind of a mess. I think it's disorganized. It'll have a lot of automobile drivers be confused, perhaps go the wrong way. It also includes a lot of crossings for pedestrians, perhaps long wait times. I'm not sure how the phasing would work, but it's kind of not great. Perhaps a roundabout or a bean-shaped roundabout might be an option. There's also, potential for just cutting off certain accesses that aren't needed and are redundant, or provide access to a road that likely won't be used in high amounts, like between just north of the Delta Plaza or Pizza there. I think the 2 lanes from 1 lane and then back to 1 lane is really not required. There's a few other suggestions. Like I said, I'll forward them to the clerk for inclusion in the council presentation, but that's everything from me. And thank you for reviewing those conceptual designs.
Thank you, Chris. Right on time. Any questions for the delegate? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Brian O'Grislow. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Microphone is live, and so whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the LRT Subcommittee. My name is Brian O'Grislow. I'm a proud Hamiltonian. I'm a resident of Ward 3 and an urban planner living and working directly on the future LRT corridor. I would first like to thank the public, council, and staff and Metrolinx for their continued commitment to our city with the Hamilton LRT. This project will surely help Hamilton meet its key priorities and strive towards a vision of being a place where everyone can live successfully. The Hamilton LRT is a pivotal opportunity for the city. The ambitious city deserves ambitious investment. Now is a chance to engage, envision, and ensure the project is prepared to deliver long-term success. I have had the opportunity to review City LRT office commentary on the LRT conceptual design update provided by Metrolinx. I trust that the LRT office and Metrolinx have considerable expertise, tact, and wherewithal to provide meaningful articulation towards the needs of this project. However, I believe the comments and design de-emphasize a critical component in developing a meaningful and well-considered higher-order transit system, public engagement. This is where I see an opportunity to grow and foster that engagement, and where I'm focusing my discussion today. Public engagement, or community consultation, is a key pillar of planning the transformation of our city. It is more than presenting your ideas and answering questions. It's about creating long-term, ongoing, and meaningful dialogue between project partners, decision makers, stakeholders, and our community. It is an exchange of knowledge, interdisciplinary expertise, and lived experience that meaningfully ensures that the project aligns with the public interest. However, I believe we have fallen short in our obligations to ensure that the public has the opportunity to respond to the substantial changes to this project. Much change has occurred since the Hamilton LRT was revived in 2021. Hamilton has implemented new key initiatives and priorities such as Vision Zero, Complete Streets, and our Climate Action Strategy, amongst others. The planning framework in Ontario is ever-changing, with changes to the Planning Act and our new provincial planning statement. And moreover, our communities have continued to evolve and change since. The design we have in front of us today appears to be a near direct translation of design suggestions made by the city to this subcommittee and Metrolinx since 2021. However, it appears that the public has not had a meaningful opportunity to engage with, review, understand, analyze, and provide feedback to these design updates. Instead, it seems to be based mainly on formal consultation information gathered in 2011 and 2017, along with executive decision-making. Additionally, a direct path to design updates is obfuscated through e-scribe reports, meeting minutes, and discussions. And further, the information to understand the rationale, studies, and evidence-based decision-making behind these designs is largely unavailable. Without a direct mechanism and evidence to support the decision-making behind these designs, they are largely incomplete. Unilateral and isolated decision-making ought to be left in the past. Public engagement is skill sharing, relationship building, and a way for Hamiltonians to weave their input and lived experience into a transformative project. It is always perspective shifting. I, for one, know how my professional, volunteer, and personal perspectives have been challenged, shifted, or reinforced by public engagement. As professionals, leaders, and decision makers, we ought to champion these principles. So whose responsibility is it to engage anyway? Since the project has been revived, community consultation determining who bears this responsibility has become complicated. Like many Hamiltonians, I whip out my computer, I check the Engage Hamilton website to see if there are opportunities to provide feedback on ongoing and long-term projects. However, to my knowledge, no engagements have been initiated since 2021 for the Hamilton LRT. Communication with the City LRT office and Metrolinx Community Office has been both enlightening and also frustrating. Both parties appear keen, able, and ready to respond to public inquiries, but both firmly believe that they are not the primary party responsible for resident-level engagement. While I know the LRT subcommittee aims to engage the broader community on these matters, I feel no current mechanisms are enabling this response, nor am I sure that the resources exist for the subcommittee to undertake such a monumental task. The City LRT office, Metrolinx, and the LRT subcommittee are core tenets of the project's success and offer great value. Analyzing this current design highlights a distinct opportunity for strategic coordination, engagement, and implementation. That being said, I want to provide some recommendations for consideration to ensure engagement and transparency. I believe the LRT subcommittee should investigate opportunities to engage the community on these design changes so their input can be meaningfully considered. The LRT office should be more transparent and provides organizational structure, mandate, decision-making process, and evidence to the public. Coordination is key to success. I believe our greatest success lies in our differences, and all stakeholders should prioritize leveraging interdisciplinary and cross-jurisdictional expertise moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your delegation. Committee members, any questions of our delegate? Member Andrus?
Hi, yes, thank you through the chair to, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you through the chair to the delegate for raising a point that I've brought up on many occasions at this subcommittee, which is community engagement and the lack therein since the environmental assessment and the massive undertaking that was done many years ago, and pointing out the numerous changes both in city design and policy. I would like to ask through the chair to the delegate, what would you imagine? The LRT subcommittee obviously can't take a lead in leading engagement. What kind of engagement would you envision? As a long-term participant, I imagine you were at some of the initial engagement sessions during the early part of the Hamilton LRT. So how would you, through the chair, envision community engagement happening around not just these specific design changes, but other specific changes around the Hamilton LRT?
Thank you for your question. Through the chair, I believe that's a complex question to answer. However, I think there are mechanisms with our city that have led to meaningful engagement. I think the Engage Hamilton website is always a meaningful opportunity for folks in our city to be able to provide meaningful input in a very collected and very strategic manner. I would love to be able to see, moving forward, these design iterations being brought forth to the public to be able to be analyzed and be able to put their feedback in each different slide and each different part of that corridor, so we can leave those comments and provide both our lived experience and also interdisciplinary experience from different professions, planners, architects, urban designers, et cetera. And to add to that, I believe that more of a liaison with industry professionals would be critical in providing more perspective to the challenges that the LRT might face.
Thank you very much for that answer. I do appreciate it and agree with you that certainly neighborhood level consultation on each of the design charrettes as presented would be great. I would also like to ask if you, through the delegate, are aware of the community benefits engagement report that the HCBN presented in 2023 to this committee that consisted of our own 20 community engagement sessions and 2,317 online respondents to questionnaires around which I feel staff did take into consideration in some of the design changes that are presented today. Were you aware at all of that report when it was presented to this subcommittee through the chair?
Through the chair, I have a vague familiarity with that initiative, but I don't have enough in-depth knowledge to speak meaningfully on that topic.
Okay, I appreciate that, and that does lead to your point during your delegation about more knowledge sharing. But just for through the chair, HCBN and other community groups have been trying to work with the Hamilton LRT office, and less so with Metrolinx through the chair, on trying to bring forward community feedback and community engagement data, as we have done through our small not-for-profit and through other members of this LRT subcommittee. So I really do again appreciate you raising the topic of public engagement, because it is something very near and dear to the HCBN and our membership. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further speakers on the speakers list? Seeing none, thank you again for your delegation.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Pierre Roy. Good afternoon and welcome, and we'll start the clock whenever you begin.
Perfect. I'm just going to raise this up a little bit.
Yep.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, that's a little better. Okay, good afternoon, members of the LRT subcommittee. I'm pleased to have this forum today to discuss the LRT project with you all, members of the community, public, and city staff. I do have a lot that I wanted to share, but I've done my best to limit my scope to the report and the commentary before you. And I hope that this can be the start of a more in-depth discussion on how the city and staff can meaningfully incorporate citizen expectations and city priorities into the project design. When I first read the report title, which is City Commentary on Conceptual Design Update, I was excited to review what the city would have to say. I know I had a lot of concerns when I first reviewed the package from Metrolinx back in May. But I was surprised to read that the comments do not cover the LRT alignment itself, being the guideway, stops, and systems, and that the city comments would instead be limited to public realm improvements alone. I find this somewhat troublesome because it's difficult to develop a comprehensive commentary when you ignore the actual LRT alignment. After all, the width and configuration of the LRT and the road have a direct impact on how much room is available for active transportation in the pedestrian realm. There are many city comments that rightfully call for a wider public realm and more street trees, but these will require space, which can be difficult to accommodate on an already narrow corridor with competing priorities. That's why I'm confused that there are very few notes questioning the necessity of some of the many wide traffic medians consuming corridor width. I have similar concerns on the lack of consistent commentary on roadway design, which is generally limited in scope and only extends from McMaster to about the downtown area. Constructive commentary essentially drops off as you get into Ward 3. This is worth discussing further, as there is significant opportunity to refine the road design in the corridor in Ward 3. There's a distinct change in the alignment east of downtown, particularly after Sherman Avenue. The road starts to get wider, there are more medians and fewer active transportation facilities. We even see valuable corridor lands taken up by what the city has called short road segments, which are only shown in Ward 3 and are essentially loop-back roads for limited use neighborhood streets. We even see the reintroduction of two-lane, one-way segments of King Street, which the city has already determined should be converted to one-way back in our 2017 plan. The shift in priorities along this section of the corridor can only be described as a shift to a more vehicle-centric design that prioritizes the efficient movement of traffic at the expense of active transportation, community residential intensification, and developing the corridor into the vibrant, mixed-use, pedestrian-oriented streetscape that it's intended to be. This is not in line with the municipal goals and provincial planning objectives. Yet, there are very few comments in the report challenging this vehicle-oriented design. I will suggest that this is because what is shown in this conceptual design is a direct result of city-led changes to the 2017 alignment, which began as early as 2018, after we completed a really massive EPR addendum. A staff report from that period suggests why King Street from the Delta to Gage Avenue is now a two-lane, one-way thoroughfare, which reads in part, "This increase in westbound traffic capacity will improve traffic operations at the Delta and provide a better traffic lane balance for westbound travel, especially during construction." Now, I don't believe that this reflects the opinions of the committee, but this is an indication that there's been no comprehensive assessment of how the project has been modified since the last approved EPR addendum, and how these changes, some of which are 7 years old now, align with key city priorities that did not exist back then. There was no Main Street two-way conversion back in 2018, which I will note provides a westbound traffic lane that will be useful in diverting traffic during LRT construction. We also didn't have our complete streets design guidelines and many of the other city initiatives we have today. We know through City Commission traffic reports that even if traffic along the LRT corridor is functioning at a level of service of F, the rest of the network will pick up the slack. So why are we sacrificing our valuable public realm along the LRT corridor for vehicular throughput? It's mentioned in the report that the LRT office will be tracking each of the comments to report back to this committee with a resolution. I appreciate this accountability and commitment to future work. My suggestion would also be to compare the current alignment to the 2017 version that already received environmental approval and re-examine why significant changes were undertaken or significant changes to track and road alignment were made, and to determine if those changes are rooted in specific data and in line with the goals and aspirations of this council and of the project. Because as Brian mentioned, there has been no real comprehensive city-led community engagement on the alignment since the project was revived in 2021. The last round of in-depth community consultation was undertaken for the 2016 and 2017 EPR addendum, which informed the subsequent 2017 approval, meaning none of the changes reflected in the current alignment or conceptual alignment have been informed by any level of city-led engagement. I too believe the people of Hamilton deserve the opportunity to provide their valuable input on how the project has progressed over the past 8 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre. Speakers list is open. Comments? Just if I could, through the clerk, in terms of all three delegations, they did have prepared suggestions. There was a comment from one of the delegates that they would share the information electronically. Just to confirm, is that also available for the two other delegates as well?
Yes.
Okay, so if you wanted to, Pierre and Brian, you could submit your comments and suggestions in writing so that the committee could receive them that way as well. Thank you. At this point, it would be the time to get a mover and seconder to receive all three delegations. Councillor Huang, seconded by Councillor Kassar. It's a show of hand vote. Those in favor? Nobody's opposed. That carries. On to our report 7.1 PED 25-184A, which is city commentary on the Hamilton LRT conceptual design update. As this item includes a staff presentation, I'll pass it over to Director Sheikh to introduce the presentation.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the LRT Subcommittee. My name is Abdul Sheikh, Director of Hamilton LRT Project Office. Today, I will provide a brief update on information report titled City Commentary on the Hamilton LRT Conceptual Design Update, which is before you today. The purpose of this report is to present the city's commentary on the LRT conceptual design and to establish a process for tracking and reporting design progress to the LRT Subcommittee as project advances. So this presentation provides an update on Hamilton LRT conceptual design, including some background information. And I will also highlight some sample of the city's commentary, which is available in Appendix A. And I will outline the next step in the process. And further details are available in the information report before you today. So if you recall, in May 2025, Metrolinx released an updated conceptual design on its project website, replacing the 2017 design that was completed following the environmental project report. City staff provided an update on this new concept design at the June LRT subcommittee, where we also received some initial feedback from the committee members and other delegates. So this updated concept design reflects ongoing project refinements, but it is important to note that the design remains subject to further development during the project development phase, which Metrolinx aiming to begin in early 2026. So following the initial feedback received at the June LRT subcommittee, staff conducted an in-depth review of the conceptual design. We engage with area councilors, LRT dedicated staff, and citywide subject matter experts, and also other key stakeholders to get comprehensive input. City's commentary on the conceptual design primarily focus on public realm and roadway infrastructure, which is technically city infrastructure. It is important to note that this committee does not include input on LRT guideway, stops, or system, as those components will be reviewed once further information are available by Metrolinx. The city's commentary on each Metrolinx design sheet is included in Appendix A of the report, and this presentation includes only 5 sample sheets taken from each of the 5 ward areas. The first sheet here is from Ward 1, which is around McMaster area. So city comments are shown in green boxes, and we have also included potential HSR stop location along LRT corridor. So due to time constraint, I will not have time to go through all of the comments, but I would like to highlight a few key examples in this slide, such as conversion of south side bike lanes, which they have shown on road, into the elevated cycle track. And we are also recommending the introduction of eastbound left-turn lane at the Coors Drive intersection. And we have also identified potential location for tree planting to enhance a streetscape, which you will see in multiple drawings. And here is a sample sheet for Ward 2 covering around International Village area. And again, key comments here include the need to maintain service area and delivery access to businesses on the north side within the International Village, as the LRT tracks are right on the north side of the roadway. And we also have identified, again, potential location for new tree planting to enhance the streetscape and public realm areas. And here is a sample sheet for Ward 3 around Delta intersection. One of the key comments here is addition of pedestrian signals to support eastbound traffic movements at Delta intersection, improving safety and accessibility for pedestrians. And we have also identified potential location for tree planting and parkets to enhance the streetscape. And here is the sample sheet for the Ward 4 area around Queenston Circle. One of the key comments here is the identification of potential location for tree planting and parkets to enhance the corridor's streetscape and support sustainability objectives. And here is the final sample sheet for Ward 5 around bridge crossing the Red Hill Valley. So some key comments here: the introduction of a barrier wall separating the roadway and sidewalk on the bridge crossing the Red Hill Valley, and which to enhance the pedestrian safety and comfort. And again, we have also identified potential location for tree planting. And in terms of next steps, we will continue to engage with key stakeholders to review and refine the design. And city staff will work collaboratively with Metrolinx and project partners to address the city's comments during the development phase, which is expected to begin in early 2026. And if any items are identified as betterments, which the information will be brought forward to the council for consideration and direction. Betterment means those items which will be funded by the city. We will also provide the city's commentary on LRT guideway, stops, and systems once the information is shared by Metrolinx. And finally, staff will track all the city comments and also any future comments which came from delegates today as well, and report back to LRT subcommittee on their resolution before the design is finalized. So this concludes my presentation, and I would like to thank all the members for their time, and I and my team would be happy to respond to your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. First up on our speakers list is Member Andrus. And Director, did you want to stay standing at the podium, or?
No, I'm okay.
That's fine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead, Member Andrus.
Through the chair, I see the speakers list was Councillor Kretsch first, I believe.
Oh, sorry. The way that it's showing up is Andrus is the last name I'm seeing, so I apologize.
Go ahead,
for that.
Carl.
Thank you through the chair. First off, I would like through the chair to thank city staff for the diligent work. This is a much greener, much more pedestrian friendly suggestions than the original presentations shown by Metrolinx, including the addition of parkettes. I have a number of questions that might require me to come back on the speakers list, but I will try and be concise. Through the chair, Director, I am wondering, was there any conversation with City Housing Hamilton around McMaster, Queenston, and Eastgate, where you do have driver facilities mentioned at Eastgate and McMaster, and then at the Queenston traffic circle where there's a substantial Metrolinx property and City Housing Hamilton buildings already in existence and identified through HSR Next potential transit terminals. So I'll start with that question, please, through the chair.
Through the chair, Member Andrus, I don't think we have specifically met with Hamilton Housing, and particularly for the design at McMaster, but we did meet with HSR and Metrolinx, and we see there's a lot of great opportunity to integrate LRT infrastructure with HSR and maybe potential go stops as well. So, you know, we have placed a holder, mentioned a comment about driver facility along this, at that location, which we will continue to explore with Metrolinx. But yes, so your answer to your question that we haven't met with Hamilton Housing for that particular. In terms of Queenston Circle, and I will pass on to our manager design, McFarty, if any input you may want to add, Chris? Mike.
Through the chair, there was never a need identified by drivers for a halfway stop, I guess, for facilities. It would generally be at the, no problem. It's generally placed at the terminuses of the routes. So unless it came out of discussions with HSR and the LRT operators at a future stage, there was the fact that there's an ability to potentially co-reside with a city housing facility wouldn't be pursued at this time.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, I would encourage, as a community member and selfishly as a member of City Housing Hamilton's Board of Directors, that perhaps the LRT office reach out to City Housing Hamilton just to have some conversations about what may or may not be possible in terms of partnerships. My next question is around the Freed from Macklin and Dundurn near the highway. There's a substantial pedestrian walk between the two pedestrian crossways, one at Macklin and the other one at Dundurn. Is there any possibility, I know it's a little complex through the chair, around the 403 interchanges for another access for pedestrians to prevent folks from just darting across the road near these on and off ramps of the highway, because that is quite some distance. And as a pedestrian myself, I have seen folks just, when the distance is too far to where they need to go, just dart right across the street. Has there been any thought given to perhaps another pedestrian access there?
And through Chair, Chris, if you want to add something about the...
Yeah, through the chair. Are you looking for an interim crossing point for pedestrians between
through the chair, that's
and Dundurn?
So, yeah.
So that would be part of the discussions. Those are tri-party discussions because it involves the ministry, and the ramps right now are still being finalized. Is there an opportunity to potentially place a pedestrian crossing there? Yes.
Yeah, and I just want to add to Chair, Member Andrews, yes, we will be discussing this with MTO and Metrolinx. We do acknowledge there's a pedestrian distance from Macklin to Dundurn, so maybe there's a potential at Freed Street, for example, right? So we are continuously engaging with those discussions, and obviously it will require MTO input, right? Because this is around their jurisdiction.
Thank you. Through the chair, around the OMSF facility at Freed, and this may come up, so feel free to defer me to step 5 during the betterment process. Has there been any conversation with Metrolinx to a similar land donation, like what happened in the Finch West LRT when the City of Toronto received lands for a community arts hub?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think that will be a bigger discussion with the province. Metrolinx is just building LRT, and Member Andrews, as we mentioned earlier, that we are engaging with the province to create a working group where all of these elements will be discussed, how the land will be disposed of once Metrolinx is done. And through MOU, there is also a mandate of looking at affordable housing. So we are actually following up with the ministry to create a working group to discuss all of these elements once that working group is established.
Thank you, Member Andrews. You're at your time, and if you do have further questions, come on a second time.
Please and thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have Councillor Crutch, followed by Councillor Huang, and then Member Walsh.
Thanks for the presentation. My question to you is just about the format of these kinds of comments. And so I'll have some comments to make when the report is up, just to talk about what my participation has been like and what I've been doing to try and engage with you folks. And we've had many meetings, I think, at this point about it. And one long meeting where we went over the maps in general and talked about some changes. And so I see them in the report, I see lists of places where, for instance, we're looking at putting in more pedestrian infrastructure. In the presentation today, I see as part of the appendix, you've got a map and you've got indications of little things that are being proposed. Is there going to be a way to track all of that? And why I ask is because, for instance, what we do in my office is when we'll do it next year at the beginning of the year, we're putting out a comprehensive kind of back and forth. So residents said, hey, we'd like to have a pedestrian signal at a certain intersection. Staff reviewed it and said, yeah, okay, we can do it there. It'll be online in 2027. Sometimes they'll say, no, we can't do it there, and here's the reason why. And then that information is provided to people so they know why, and it's publicly accessible. Are you going to be able to go through and do that kind of tracking some way so that it's easy for people to see, okay, these are the suggestions put in by the community. This was the response to the suggestion. Because right now, it's just suggestions are there, right? But there's not a way to track whether it's yes or no. For instance, I've had lots of people ask me about, could we do a scramble at James and King? And I know I've had that conversation with folks, and there's limitations to being able to do a scramble at James and King. What are those limitations, right? And so I don't want those conversations to happen only with me. I want there to be some transparency. So like, what's the next iteration of this look like in terms of making sure the public can see clearly what the questions and answers from the public are and what the answers back from folks are?
Yeah. And through you, Madam Chair, Councillor, very good question. So the whole purpose of today's presentation is to provide city commentary, and there will be another report which will be coming about betterments, right? What potential city items which are funded by the city. So combining with these items along with betterment items, definitely we will be tracking all of these elements, and we will bring back more information how each of the comments have been addressed, as mentioned in our report as well, as mentioned in the presentation, that we'll be taking the base design comments, what you see here, and also the betterments item we're going to bring probably in December. And then we probably will have an Excel sheet. We will say that, you know, how this comment has been addressed. And once the design progresses, because obviously Metrolinx will have to deliver design in stages. Like our standard typically is 30%, 60%, 90%. So we will see what the key milestone is. We should bring these information and then mention, you know, what comments have been successfully negotiated with Metrolinx. And if there is nothing, then why? What is the reason? Because, for example, pedestrian signal, you see number of pedestrian signals we have added, requested. So maybe because of the transit operational signal timing is going to impact and those kind of, so we will plan to bring all of these information for tracking and transparency purposes as well.
Thanks, and as an Excel spreadsheet lover, I'm sure I'll have a great time with it. I think it's also worth thinking about how the public will be able to engage with this in both a visual way and also other kinds of ways, because I think, like, you know, for instance, this is a commentary, right? So there's comments you're making. We don't know what LRT's Metrolinx's response is to those comments yet, and we won't know them yet. And I understand that you're just producing a thing saying, here's all of our comments. I think in the end, it'll be good to have something similar that's visual that says, hey, residents asked for these 19 things here. The reason why we can't do them is whatever. Because I think some of the answers lie with us. It's not just about asking Metrolinx if we can do something, right? Sometimes we're going to be asked something and the city's just going to say, no, the city doesn't support that activity. This is why it doesn't support the activity. That's what I'm looking forward to, is just who the owner of it is, who's responsible for making the decision. Because unfortunately, Metrolinx isn't here. And so that's one of the hard things for us, is that there's a lot more I think that we could dig into or have conversations about, but they've chosen not to take up the invitation to join us, which puts you in an awkward position, I'm sure.
And, through you, Madam Chair, very good suggestion. We will go back and look at how we are reporting back. And obviously, you know, we wanted to create these design because they will be having that development phase starting in 2026. So at least, you know, now we have some information along betterments. At least, you know, we have lots of information, but the feedback is more going to come from the community. But we will definitely look into it, how we're going to provide or tracking all of these comments back to the council.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pine?
Thank you. I appreciate Councillor Crutch's questioning, because it's, I guess, the next iteration of this. On your last slide, it says continue engagement with key stakeholders to review the concept design. I wonder if you can unpack that and just speak a little bit more about what does that look like, because we do have delegates here that are asking for better engagement. So I wonder if you can just give us a sense of what does that look like moving forward.
Through you, Madam Chair, Councillor, very good question. So we always look forward to any opportunities we have from the community organization or stakeholders, right? So, for example, you know, which is not mentioned here, we already met with SCBT team to get their input, right? So a number of stakeholders, and then, you know, we have actually, like, for example, one of the delegates have provided lots of very good comments by an email, right? So we provided a response, and we also offered them to sit together if there are further discussions on those kind of things, right? So, and again, you know, we will offer Mr. Chris Basma as well for cycling. I can see, you know, lots of comments coming from those, so we will probably you know, offer a sitting together so that we can get if there are any additional comments beyond what we have shown. So any, you know, any opportunity we see, we will continue to engage with these stakeholders, definitely.
Thank you. And then I also wonder if you can speak a little bit more about that last, another comment on this next step slide, which is providing comments on the LRT guideway stops and systems with Metrolinx. I wonder, because this is not the same as betterments, but it's essentially the core components of LRT, but I know that we must have preferences as to how guideways might be constructed, or maybe the types of potential crossings. How does that sort of commentary work when we're trying to share with Metrolinx?
Yeah. Through you, Madam Chair, as we mentioned, that if you look at the Metrolinx design, it's focused more on roadway infrastructure, because a very high level at 10-foot scale, right, 10,000 scale, there will be lots of other details going to come. For example, how the stop is going to look like, right? Whether there's a full canopy, partial canopy, whether there's a shelter in the stops. There will be OCS, or overhead catenary system, whether they are on the intersection or at the guideway. And then there will be traction power substation along the community where there will be big boxes and those kind of. So I just wanted to mention in the report that we haven't received those information, which will come. As you know, Metrolinx is packaging 2-package strategy. So the first package is more about civil and utilities, which is focused here. But there will be a second package about LRT roads, system, tracks and guideway. So once those information comes in, we will again, we'll be going through the same exercise, what kind of a staff we need, although these are all Metrolinx infrastructure, right? So we may have to fund, but we will be providing more transparency, what Metrolinx is building for LRT infrastructure, and we will bring those information. The city has to spend money on those infrastructure, or we will be negotiating with Metrolinx on to improve on those design elements.
Okay. I do want to narrow in on a couple of things you just said there, but I do want to ask a question before. So I want to narrow in on the funding, because if there's any type of, I don't know, if we have to pay above and beyond, I don't know what that looks like, but I'm parking that right now. My other question is, as we are receiving these packages from Metrolinx, and because we're talking to key stakeholders, I think that sometimes there's a disconnect when it comes to some of our most vulnerable sort of people. Like, I think in my ward, I have residents that are deaf and blind. So how do we also enable Metrolinx to think about our most vulnerable road users, the ones that may not have, will require additional sort of like tactile surfaces, which I don't want to call them betterments, because I think that they ought to be in the core design of how we actually design these stops and all of that. So how does that work? Because I don't want to call it betterments, because that shouldn't be an above and beyond. That should be core and central to how we design these stops.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Obviously, we do have a formal committees where we go and get their comments. For example, we already met probably 2 times, if I'm not mistaken, SCPD, to go through the design and to receive their feedback on accessibility perspective, right? Obviously, Metrolinx is required to do the AODA, which is Ontario minimum regulation, but we do have a higher standards, right? So we are getting those feedback from accessibility committee. For example, the street furniture, which is not here, right? So that will be packaged to street furniture, arms on shelters and those kind of things, right? So we are documenting those comments, and we will be discussing with Metrolinx the basis scope. And if they believe that this is beyond AODA requirement and this and that might be a betterment, which we will have to bring that information back to. But obviously, our job is to negotiate, fall onto the basis scope, but sometimes there are limitations because of the AODA minimum requirement, and then and obviously if there are city standards, then they have to fulfill those city standards as well.
I hope for us to enable you and empower you to move forward on doing better than just AODA minimum standards. I think the hope is to be best in class when it comes to supporting our most vulnerable residents. Back to my parked question, which was, you made a comment about funding and how we may, I guess some of this back and forth might include additional costs or something like that. So I guess maybe just help me understand how that works, because we're already offering the betterments funding, which is above and beyond and is different than the $3.4 billion. So can you help me understand that one little comment that you made about the additional funding that might happen?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. I think we should. There was a report actually last LRT subcommittee where we provided a framework around how the betterment process is going to evolve. So obviously, we do have proactively allocated some funding, which is around 10 million in one account, 10 million in another account, but subject to the budget approvals, right? So we do have envelope or bucket to work around, and there is a report coming to the December or maybe Q1 in 2026. We will mention how we are utilizing these funds, right? Where we will need, so, there's a whole detailed report, 9-step process. So next report, what's going to happen is going to come with the potential betterment list and seeking council input if there are any other items you think should go into the list. And then we will mention what are the next steps, right? Because we will have to negotiate those items with Metrolinx. They will probably have to engage their consultant to investigate, so we might have to pay those investigation costs before we actually confirm those items. So there is a whole complicated process, which will probably, you will see for more information in December or Q1 2026.
Okay. Chair, I have one more question, but it's not really part of this presentation, but it's a question that we, as committee, received as resident. A resident sent us an email asking us about federal funding and where is it. So I wonder,
Can you hold that question? I just want to finish the questions on the concept design presentation and then see where that question might land.
Okay, thank you.
Member Walsh.
Thank you. Through the chair, thank you for the presentation and keeping us updated on all these changes. I noticed a lot of comments from the city with requests to accommodate tree plantings along the route. Is that something that's still being considered and looked at for the route as a whole, or only in those specific locations that it's been requested?
Through you, Madam Chair, tree is such an important piece. Wherever we see opportunity, we will. So right now what we have seen, like wherever we see a wider pedestrian platform on the both sides, we have asked Metro, can you consider? But definitely there will be a whole detailed design process where our eyes will be everywhere on board the trees, right? So not just these locations, but any other opportunities. But here, there are easy wins, what we think. Again, they have to look at the underground utilities and all other things, right? But we believe, these are the easy wins where we can add potential trees, but definitely we'll be looking at more opportunities for trees. That will be our number one priority.
That's fantastic. I agree. The more trees, the better. Do you know when we can expect to see the changes to the Frank A. Cook terminal reflected in these documents?
Through you, Madam Chair. So can you repeat question? Which terminal?
Absolutely. So in the HSR updated plan that they presented about a month ago, they shared that the Frank A. Cook terminal would be decommissioned, but it was a bit of a chicken and egg situation with LRT construction versus that. So just wondering when we're seeing that integrated into these plans.
Through you, Madam Chair. Chris, do you want to add, respond?
Through the chair, the portion of a corridor between Bay and James is in flux because of the art gallery, access to the parking garage, Frank A. Cook. I wouldn't reasonably expect that in advance of the Alliance development phase that we would see a reissued drawing.
So through you, Madam Chair. So technically, next year, when they have an Alliance partner on board, and we will be actively discussing, around that area, that how the garage access is going to look like, where the signals are going to look like, right? So the development phase is planned to start in 2026, where those discussions will trigger.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If I could ask Vice Chair to take over, and through you, I am the next speaker on the list. Vice Chair Crutch. Thank you. Okay, so just two areas of commentary. Thank you for the presentation and for integrating the comments into the report. One of the conversations we had in the opportunity to have the consultation as a ward councillor was the alignment of the LRT, its conceptual design, as it relates to school zones. So in the Ward 3 area specifically, we have 2 high schools and an elementary school right on the LRT line. And one of the community stakeholders that we identified in that conversation was the question about whether or not the school boards have been integrated into that discussion, whether there's going to be an alignment to the school safety programming that the city is currently engaged in through traffic planning, and if there can be some commentary there in terms of maximizing the public realm that centers the child pedestrian given our Vision Zero principles as a municipality. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, as we, Council and we sat together and we tried to consolidate all of the comments what we received through those discussion. But definitely we will see those opportunity with meeting with the school board. So there are two scenarios. One is a construction impact about safety. That's really the paramount. So that's what we are not discussing here. This is all about post-LRT, right? So there will be lots of discussion once we know from the alliance partner how this project is going to be constructed, which lane is going to be closed, and city staff working with Metro Lanes to see how we can mitigate it in terms of the safety and those kind of things. That will come later once we have more information from the contractor. But in terms of post-LRT, we already met with area ward councilors, so we will be continuously meeting with other stakeholders, as you mentioned about the school board, and we will see what their needs are, and then we will add those comments into the design commentary. I don't know, Chris, you would like to add something?
I'm going from memory, but I thought we provided a note both at Parkdale and Queenston and Victoria and Maine speaking to crossings and age-friendly designs. If not, it's probably within the text of the report itself, but we didn't specifically go and look at every school site at the time. We figured we would leave that to the consultation with the school boards to find out what the area of influence is, people using the corridor and how they transition to get there.
Okay, so there is an opportunity to get further design comments as it relates to the school population and the school needs for students. Thank you. And then the second one is just in terms of continuity. And again, this is in the body of the report, but it's not reflected in the comments and the tags, and I'm just curious about it. The alignment to Main Street two-way conversion, given the impact of the two-way conversion also being parallel to the LRT, essentially, I'm just curious about the continuity of that alignment being something that staff are going to be integrating in at this stage versus what it appears though it's mentioned up to Wellington Street, and then it's not mentioned after that, going eastbound.
Through you, Madam Chair, in terms of Main Street conversion, that has been coordinated in the design. For example, Summer Lane, we were talking about whether we need two-way traffic or not. But I think we have looked at whatever the Main Street conversion design is and coordinated with LRT and provided comments in this one. If you are missing, I don't know, Chris, are we missing any part of Main Street conversion? Probably not, right? But we will take that information, Councillor, and see if there are any missing pieces between. Obviously, there will be a construction coordination, which we have to figure it out later, but post-LRT scenario, it has been coordinated with Main Street conversion.
Great. Okay, thank you. I'll take back the chair. Second time speakers now. We have Member Andrus.
Thank you. Through the chair, my first question is around step 5 in the betterment process. After it's presented in December or in 2026, whenever it comes back to this committee, will there be, through the chair, an opportunity through Engage Hamilton for community engagement around those betterment suggestions and perhaps enhancements based on public feedback?
Through you, Madam Chair, Member Andrews, we will be bringing our very draft list, whatever we have discussed among the city-wide, right? So we have consulted probably 70, 80 subject matter experts and to see, what opportunity to see as part of the LRT construction. So we will bring that information here at LRT subcommittee, and then public is, open to come and delegate, and then, so that will not be a final list, definitely. It will be just a draft list, and that list will continue to grow as we bring those information to the public. So probably we will see that opportunity coming from the LRT subcommittee. That will be our first line of action to get public comments from that.
So through the chair, just to clarify then, the LRT subcommittee is not Engage Hamilton or any broader other community engagement strategies. Basically, the LRT subcommittee is where you expect the public to provide their feedback through the chair.
Through you, Madam Chair. So that's really the plan, is to go through the LRT subcommittee. If council requires to go, we do have a limited resources, right? So we are about less than a dozen staff. But if we see there's a need of going beyond the LRT subcommittee or meeting with individual stakeholders, we also met with a number of individual stakeholders as well. If we see there is another opportunity beyond whatever we're going to show to the public, then we will need a direction from council to go from there.
Thank you. Through the chair, my next question is, and again, this may fall into the betterment process, but all of the renderings that we see of the stops provided by Metrolinx show entrance only from one side. And I'm just curious about the possibility of a double crossing, considering how wide the stops are from an accessibility standpoint, and if any consideration has been given to city comments in making sure that the stops can be accessed from both sides and a pedestrian crossing at both ends of the fairly long stop. Thank you. Through the chair.
Through you, Madam Chair, in terms of crossing the rear side of crossing, that's best scope. It's not a betterment, Member Andrews. And I think in most of the, if you look at the basic scope design, we have tried to, or Metrolinx have tried to capture the both side, the front and rear end, right? So, and then we also provided comments. If we see there is a signal, then why don't we just continue that platform for pedestrian to go to that near signal? So we have tried our best to look at where the opportunities are in terms of crossing on the both sides of the platform. I'm not sure, Chris, you would like to add anything? No. So yeah, so we have done that analysis, and that committee is mentioned. But if there is a creative idea, so Member Andrews, just let us know, and then we will include and discuss with Metrolinx as well.
Thank you. Just coming forward, I know during the betterment process, there was no mention of, at least in the staff report through the chair, of climate resilience in terms of the shelters, benches and garbage and recycling receptacles between the stops and other types of amenities. I'm wondering, especially around washrooms where there's already going to be driver facilities, is that something that we can expect to see in step 5 through the chair?
Through you, Madam Chair, in terms of street furniture, if it's anything within the city property, we have already presented our city standard probably couple of ago, like LRT subcommittee. So city has developed our street furniture standard, which does show that what street furniture equipment we are looking at within city property. In terms of guideway, that information will come when Metrolinx is providing those information. So that's not available to us. But in terms of city boulevard, so for example, the facilities, if they are facilities within the road right-of-way, then the furniture around that facility will already be captured in our standard, street furniture standard, for which we have particularly developed for LRT project.
I'm sorry, through the chair, Director. I was referring to between the stops. Some of the walking distances can be a little long, especially for people with mobility challenges. So I was looking at accoutrements and receptacles for trash between the stops.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, those information, once those information is available from Metrolinx, we will be reviewing against our walking distance, against our accessibility design standard, and then we will be providing those comments once we have those information available from Metrolinx, which at this time we don't have.
Through the chair, thank you very much. I look forward to further conversation offline around some of the items and suggestions that we've heard from the community through the betterment process. Thank you again for your staff's diligent work and definitely greening the corridor substantially.
Thank you. Second time, Councillor Huang.
Chair, this is a question that we received from a resident. In particular, it asks, understanding the federal funding and...
Okay, sorry. So is it in alignment with the topic of the report and presentation?
It is not. However, there is no other time in this meeting where we can ask these types of questions, and because it is geared towards Director Shake. So that's why I didn't know how best to bring it.
Yeah, I think the appropriate way would be offline, get the answer, and then circulate the information to the resident by email. That's the correspondence channel. If the delegate wanted to come to, or if the resident wanted to come to delegate to ask a question publicly, they would have been routed onto the agenda according to a report that question would have been appropriate for, or have the opportunity to have that in response come through the clerk's office as well. So I am going to, just for the sake of holding chair and holding due process, just remain consistent that if it's off of the report, we're not going to entertain it right now. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, so on to receipt of the presentation and report. If I could get a mover and seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Crutch, seconded by Councillor Kassar. And so we did take presentation questions. Is there any further discussion on the report? I mean, we did a lot of detailed discussion in the presentation, but just wanted to give that opportunity one more time. On the report, anything specific? Councillor Crutch.
Thanks. Just for a little bit of transparency on the report, because I know I met with folks at Metrolinx and at the LRT office of the city, and we went through each one of the blocks, block by block, and discussed all the feedback I've received as a councillor from residents, from businesses. I've been on some walkthroughs with residents, with businesses, with BIA leaders and folks on BIAs at various times to discuss this corridor. It's a very unique part of the LRT line, Ward 2. It's very tight. There's not a lot of things we can do, frankly, in this section, apart from keeping maybe one lane open for vehicles, because they have to do things like deliver to the art gallery, be able to drop off deliveries sometimes for businesses, get between blocks. But I'm impressed so far by what I've seen. We're capping a number of streets in Ward 2 so that you can't go north off King. And we're stopping entrances to those streets that don't have a use or a need for deliveries behind them, other kinds of continual traffic. And what this is going to do is create a lot more pedestrianization just inherently as part of the design, right? So my big focus in all my discussions with LRT staff has been, how do we make this space an excellent transit corridor, but also how do we maximize it for pedestrians? Because right now, it's extremely dangerous for pedestrians to use this area. And I'll say for businesses, it's a nightmare, because you have cars just pouring down King Street on a regular basis. It doesn't create a sense of streetscape, doesn't create a sense of safety, doesn't create a sense of calmness. You don't get the sense you can look around at businesses when things change. You're kind of just speedily walking through the corridor trying to get off of King Street. And many people often take another street and try to get off of Main. They go to Jackson, you know. They'll go off over to other streets that are parallel to King. So making this an inviting place for people to be is important. And just want to let people know that those conversations are happening. And there's going to be chances to engage with the public more about this. Also, Metrolinx has confirmed pretty publicly that they're trying to target this thing to be up and running by 2032, they've said, which means if you count backwards a little bit, that means construction is going to start sometime between 2028 and 2030, somewhere in there, depending on how this works. So, okay, great. And I'm pitching pretty heavily to say we ought to do sections that are really difficult first, and try to minimize the impact to the specific areas where there are very, very dense areas, because there's going to be very difficult things to do, for instance, at King and John, right? King and James. Those intersections are going to be difficult. How do we not totally mash up Gore Park when we're doing this? What do we do with the Cenotaph? How do we deal with the third phase of the programming for taking back the parking spaces from the Royal Connaught as part of the new park? And just to answer some delegate points, I want to let you know, even things as little as the desire path by the fence line in Gore Park that goes to John Street is part of these discussions. It might not be showing up here today, but that's why I asked, because I think every little thing like that ought to show up somewhere at some point so we can get a sense of what's going to be happening. Because I know, for instance, that's actually not an LRT-related issue. That's part of the Phase 2 and Phase 3 of the Gore Park Master Plan. And so in the Gore Park Master Plan, everything's going to be moved around and we're going to change it. And hopefully, as part of this design, we're going to get a proper intersection at King and John so people can cross right at the block level instead of crossing way back, which creates all kinds of problems for people. Anyways, just wanting to let you know that what you're seeing here is a snippet. There's a lot of conversations happening, and I know that we're going to be seeing a lot more detail in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no further speakers on the speakers list, it is now before committee for electronic vote. And that carries. Thank you. On to items for consideration. 8.1 PED 24087C, recruiting additional LRT subcommittee advisors in order to facilitate consideration of climate justice. So I believe over to you, Director Lukasik, to introduce.
Yes, thank you very much. Through the chair, really pleased to be back here today with a report with some recommendations for you to consider as far as recruiting those additional non-voting advisors. So we have Project Manager Beatrice Ekoko from the Office of Climate Change Initiatives team to share with you all the work that's been done to get us to this point. And so over to Beatrice. Thank you.
Good. Hello. Okay, good afternoon, members of the LRT subcommittee, staff, and the public. So I'm here to discuss report PD 24087C, recruit an additional LRT subcommittee advisors in order to facilitate consideration of climate justice. Use a mouse. Okay. Report PD 24087C follows report PED 24087B. It recommends inviting 6 local organizations with climate justice knowledge to each send 1 representative to serve as a non-voting advisor to the LRT subcommittee. These advisors will help ensure that climate justice is considered in the committee's decisions and discussions. So based on inviting these 6 organizations to join the LRT subcommittee helps to achieve procedural equity. Procedural equity, again, I've been here explaining a few times, is a dimension of climate justice that focuses on fair and inclusive decision-making. It means making sure that everyone, especially groups that are often left out, like frontline communities, has the chance to learn about, participate in, and shape municipal climate decisions. And this helps ensure that local plans and actions reflect community needs and prioritize those disproportionately affected by climate change. As previously discussed, frontline communities are those populations on the front line of climate change with the least resources to bounce back from the impacts. Frontline communities are at risk of increased vulnerability from climate change because they are already facing social, economic, and environmental challenges that make it harder for them to adapt or recover. So if these challenges are not addressed, such populations will be less likely to benefit from climate action. And we have here a list of some of these frontline communities that we're talking about. So urban indigenous, Black, persons with disabilities, and I won't go through the whole list because it's there on the slide. I'm going to move on. So in working to assess organizations for recommendation to the LRT subcommittee, staff considered the diversity and the intersectionality of categories of frontline communities they support. Staff also considered the ability for and the level of community engagement the organizations possess through multiple channels. So that could be, we were looking at the reach, we were looking at the what are the extent of their networks, the ability, like maybe social media, how far they have that content, that reach as well, the different groups and partnerships that these various groups, organizations have. So really trying to get a sense of how engaged they are and how they do community engagement. And so this brings us now to the recommended list of local organizations, the Niwasa Kendaswin Afro-Canadian Caribbean Association, Disability Justice Network of Ontario, Everyone Rides Initiative is Hamilton Bike Sharing, Hamilton Centre for Civic Inclusion, and Hamilton Roundtable for Poverty Reduction. And that concludes my quick presentation. I'm happy to receive questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that overview. Committee members, speakers list is open. Any questions or comments on the report recommendations? Councillor Maureen Wilson.
Thank you. Thank you for the report and the presentation today. Mine are primarily just reminder questions, so I can get some reminder answers. Just procedurally, can you help me understand the distinction, if any, between the legacy members who I'm seeing across the horseshoe and these members? Will there be any distinction in mandate, in mode of participation, or anything of that nature? Thank you.
Okay, through the chair, I believe from the terms of reference which were updated, I don't think there's going to be a distinction insofar as the role of the new non-voting advisors, in the sense that just like the other non-voting advisors, they are welcome to share their concerns or weigh in on discussions. At least, you know, they don't have that voting opportunity, of course, but they can bring forward concerns. So, for instance, for I'm thinking of Hamilton's Home, they can bring forward their concerns, and similarly, these new non-voting advisors can bring forward the concerns of the populations that they serve and support.
Okay, thank you. So, in summary, and I'm also just looking at Carrie as well. In summary, there's no distinction. Okay, thank you. So if I could, through the chair, ask, do non-voting members, to your understanding, do they have to advise on any conflict of interest?
Through the chair, that's a question that I believe maybe the... I don't see that there, if there's, I think in any situation, if there's a conflict of interest, as far as I understand, you would have to announce that conflict of interest. But I'm going to defer to...
I'm looking for some certainty. Thank you.
Yes, okay.
We would have to seek the advice of the Integrity Commissioner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe at the appropriate time, if I have to make that formal direction, I will do so. Is that what you're suggesting through the chair? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And just so, if you could also help me understand, I thought I heard some of the reasons for your selection that informed the selection. How many groups in total were actually considered at the start of your deliberations?
Yes, through the chair, at least 10, if not more, and I can provide the list, actually, if you would like to see the list. Some groups were not able to due to capacity, and I think that was the main reason. They just didn't have the capacity to participate in these meetings.
So if I can understand that further, there were individuals of each of the 10 groups. You did outreach to them, and they gave you the feedback with respect to capacity through the chair.
So through the chair, exactly. Many of the groups that we approached, we already have built a relationship with them. So, and this is through the co-design of the climate justice framework. So we're working with partners on this framework. And so they were seeking more opportunities to be involved. And so when this opportunity became available, I let folks know. There were also other groups that were not part of this climate justice framework process that were approached. And again, they just didn't have the capacity to even consider. Yeah. I hope that helps.
Yep. Thank you through the chair. So in summary, you put your net out, 10 were in the net, and through your deliberations, primarily about your engagement with them through their capacity to be a constant, to exercise their membership consistently, they self-determined that, and that got you down to a list of 6.
That's correct.
Are they willing to have their name their group's name shared publicly, or is that something that we have to pursue offline through the
So
chair?
through the chair, their names are publicly on.
Are they? Oh, I beg your pardon. I'm so sorry.
No
Thank
problem,
you.
yeah.
Okay. So at the appropriate time then, if I could ask for a pursuit of the conflict question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There's no further speakers on the speakers list on this report. Okay, so thank you for the presentation overview. Turning to Elsie McIntosh on the clarity around conflict.
So that staff be directed to consult with the integrity commissioner respecting the non-voting visors conflict or potential conflict.
Okay. Okay, so that would be an amendment to the existing report recommendations? Or would that be a standalone motion?
I think that would be a standalone motion.
Thank you. Okay, let's deal with the report recommendations as they are before us. Mover and seconder, Councillor Crutch and Councillor Wilson.
My apologies. I do have one more question on the report.
Okay, one more question on the report.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, the last time I think we had a discussion about this, thank you for the report, by the way, and the presentation. Showing my ignorance, do non-voting members have to commit to not, this sounds awful, but to commit to not doing anything that could obstruct the fulfillment of the project? Through the chair.
Through the chair, I'll provide a response, Councillor. Yes, we're approaching this with an invitation letter that will require those organizations to respect the mandate of the committee. So that meaning that the invitation is to come to the table to provide input, raise concerns, propose ideas, but with that assumption, obviously, that an LRT project is moving forward. So that's certainly something that will be made clear. It's an expectation that they'll respect the mandate of the subcommittee.
Yeah, thank you. I think in the interest of transparency, so that all these folks have the full confidence of the public, to be fair to them, will that, through the chair, will that letter be publicly available?
Through the chair, we can certainly make sure that it is. Yes, absolutely. And maybe we'll seek some direction on how best to through the clerk to do that. Anyway, we can talk offline or now about how we can ensure that happens.
Yeah, thank you. Just with the proviso to the clerk that it would be publicly available, however that is. Thank you very much.
No further questions on the report? Okay, so the report is before committee for approval. Electronic vote. I did submit. Oh, sorry, carried. My apologies. Okay, so Director Sheikh, you wanted to correct the record on something.
Yeah, Councillor, through you, Madam Chair, I just would like to, on the record, that the 2032 opening year is being mentioned a lot, which is technically coming from HSR Next study. And that was just an internal HSR study. That number was there just for arbitrary and planning purposes, right? And that report also mentioned in case that 2032 is not achievable, is going to adjust it, right? So I just want to be on record. Metrolinx keep mentioning that at this time there is no construction timeline or there is no completion timeline available as of today. As soon as that information available, it will bring to the public, right? So I just wanted to bring that clarity. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that that was used by HSR Next for study purposes specifically. Thank you for clarifying that. I think that's really important to make sure coming out of this meeting it's clear. Okay, so on to notices of motion. Councillor Maureen Wilson.
Thank you. If I could, through the chair, seek the guidance of Carrie. I know you had drafted something, if it would be okay. If not, I can do it. Yeah, okay.
Councillor Wilson, do you want to read it in? It's on the screen.
Thanks, Carrie. That staff be directed to consult with the Integrity Commissioner respecting the potential conflict of interest for non-voting member advisors, that it be made publicly. I think, thank you, Carrie, very much, or Elsie McIntosh. My purpose is to ensure that these members enjoy publicly the trust and confidence. So I just was, hoping that we would be able to receive some counsel from the Integrity Commissioner on whether non-voting members are subject to the city's conflict of interest guidelines and code of conduct. To council's conflict of interest provisions and code of conduct policies. Thank you. No problem. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Conflict of interest and code of conduct policies.
And report back with the whatever response. Thank you.
Just to clarify, so, first of all, is there a seconder? And then I think once it's been formally moved and seconded, then there can be further tweaking of the language by fellow committee members if needed, and further discussion about any other clarity. So is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Huang, okay. So I'll open it up for speakers list, and I do think that it needs a little bit more clarifying. Councillor Crutch, please.
Couple things here about this. So the first is we already have non-voting members on that already fulfill this role. They've already been trained, they've already been apprised of their conflict of interest roles, and the same exact thing will happen for the new folks. And so I don't think we'd ask the Integrity Commissioner a question, but they'll get trained. I don't know why this group and not the other, and I'm worried the message this sends is there's something special happening here to this group and not the previous group. So for me, I'm just not understanding the need for this. Like the clerk's office will train people, the Integrity Commission will be involved in that training as necessary. There's actually some paperwork that all non-voting members were given. So that could perhaps be referenced in terms of how conflicts of interest work for non-voting members. I'm not sure why we're asking the Integrity Commission to give us advice about this particular round of non-voting members when I think that information is already available somewhere.
Thank you. Councillor Maureen Wilson.
Yeah, thank you for those that feedback. I guess I did begin my remarks rooted in a position of ignorance. So I acknowledge that I wasn't sure. And I thought I had asked the question if. And so the beginning of my statement was, are they are they to be treated the same? Yes, was the response I got. Great. And then my other level of ignorance was, do existing enjoy that or experience that? That was my question. If I didn't wait for the answer, I apologize. It wasn't clear to me. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was treated the same. Thank you.
So can we get that clarity from clerks in terms of currently the practice for our existing non-voting members?
They would be treated alike.
They would be
And
trained alike
subject.
and receive this, and subject to the same terms of
Yes.
terms of reference. Okay. In which case, then, Councillor Wilson, is your motion still needed?
Yeah, and I do apologize for taking up the committee's time. I didn't procedurally wait to receive that clarity or confirmation from LC McIntosh. Now, upon its receipt, I think that's a good public expression of confidence, and I
Great.
appreciate that.
Perfect. So motion withdrawn. Okay. No further notices of motion? Wonderful. Seeing that there is no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your participation and all your preparation in advance of